Hey, that's pretty good.
The last patch added extra size to Seven's balls at max rank, and yeah, they can get pretty big. And this isn't just a meme, this can get quite strong as you can constantly shoot out loads of them. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to abuse this to win a bunch of games before it gets nerfed. So this is the full build that we're going to be using to shoot our balls out everywhere. You can find it called Big Balls, and there's the link thing to it in the description, but let's take this one phase at a time. So starting off with laning phase, the general goal as 7 in most lanes is to secure as many souls as you can and play for objectives. Your kill potential isn't all that high in most lanes, kind of depends if it's a duo or solo and who your duo is, so it's often better just to push the Guardian, try to get damage on it, and secure as many souls as you can. In terms of your items in the laning phase, you don't really build items specifically for the laning phase. I mean, Healing Right's basically the only one you go if you need to, but the rest of the stuff is just generally good for you as you go along. All of these spirit items build into core items later down the road, so you're not really going to be selling a lot of this, which is really nice. On this note, don't worry too much if you lose your laning phase, because this build is maybe the single best one at catching back up in the game. You have so much recovery just because you farm super fast, as I'll get into later. Generally for playstyle as 7 on lane, I like to just use abilities off cooldown to harass and push the lane as much as possible. Basically, especially your stun is very undervalued in lane. I really like it. I upgrade it first and get the first point in it. It is really strong. You basically can use it every single wave and secure at least a few troopers. So especially with your stun, just throw your abilities out whenever they're on cooldown and you have any opportunity to hit them. Same thing with your third ability. It's really annoying to play against in lane because it's always chaining lightning to you, so just use it on cooldown, especially if they're under Guardian or something like that. It's super annoying to deal with, and you can just get a lot of poke and push for free. If the laning phase is still sort of going on by the time you have all of these 500 cost items, if you're losing and are worried about dying, you can go Divine Barrier here a little bit early, and just that's a really good survivability item for whenever someone jumps on you. Otherwise, just save all the souls because Rapid Recharge is insane for us. Looking into the mid game now, once the laning phase is over, the jungle spawning, most of the Guardians are down, you become a farm machine. As I just mentioned, you want to rush Rapid Recharge as fast as you can. Ideally, you skip both Divine Barrier and Fleet Foot, but if you're having a tough game a little far behind and you sort of need that extra survivability, then going Divine Barrier and or Fleet Foot first can also be a viable option. After those, you finish up sort of your core farming items with Enduring Speed, just for, again, more speed to get around the map. These items are all about letting you move around the map and farm. You can very quickly move from wave to camp to another wave. You're super fast, hard to catch, and you'll have so many charges of ball that you'll always have one up when you're doing a camp. Here you want to be saving all your points for your ball, because once it's maxed out, not only do you get a bigger ball, which is what we're all about here, but you can farm the camps super easily. Every medium and small camp, once you have that last upgrade in your ult, just dies to one ball. So you can just walk up, throw one ball down, and then leave, and just bathe in the beautiful sound of the creeps dying behind you. After those sort of core farming items, you can start getting a little more damage, which obviously helps you farm a little bit more, and Enchanter's Barrier is just nice for hybrid damage and tankiness option. Or you can also, if you're having a really good game, you can rush straight to Escalating Exposure really quickly around this time to give you a lot more damage and help you do those bigger camps easier. So as I mentioned, for your playstyle in the mid game here, you are all about moving around the map quickly, catching waves, just making the map really annoying for the enemy to play by constantly pushing out their waves, and then farming every little bit of jungle you can in between that. During the mid game, you have two main goals. One, make the map as annoying to play as possible for them, and two, get as far ahead as everybody in the game, especially on the enemy team, in souls. Luckily, both these goals are achieved in the same way, by pushing lanes and taking jungle, especially their jungle. And just a note here, you basically use Divine Barrier and Fleet Foot on cooldown just to get from place to place for that move speed. Now, of course, your ideal is you just farm and push waves, but you still do want to join fights if you can, especially if they're important fights. You don't really want to leave your team out to dry because that's just being a bad teammate, probably not good for the game. And you're actually pretty strong in fights, even though you are sort of a scaling carry. Your stun is really helpful, your ult could even be a good zoning tool, and your balls, of course, are still a menace, even early game. Once you're sort of ahead in souls, you can look to pick up soul and bullets, and then start ganking people. It's really easy to set up ganks because you're so fast. You just run at people, throw your stun at them, throw a ball on them, and then start shooting them with your 3. It will slow them down, keeping the ball a little bit further. They'll get out of the ball, but then by the time the stun actually procs, you'll have another ball up, and you just throw another ball on top of them and keep shooting them, and it's basically death if they don't have any way to deal with it or team around them. After getting all these items, if you have flex slots available, you can also pick up a Mystic Slow, as it makes your ball even more annoying, and more slows stacking is just super annoying for the enemy. In terms of how your ability points are going from this point on, after you've maxed up your ball, you have 1 point in stun, 1 point in 3, as those are just really good value points. You can either max your 2 or your 3 from now on. I'd suggest against maxing your ult. You can do it, but I really don't think the ult is very good. So max either your 2 or your 3. I like maxing 2 personally. I think it's a little bit better, but there's nothing wrong with maxing your 3 either for a little bit of extra left click damage. Then after you've maxed that, max the other one between 2 and 3, and then go for your ultimate last. You really don't want to put any points into ultimate until the very end, as it's just not a super value spell for this playstyle. Okay, moving into the late game, this is where you start looking at your 6200 luxury items, and you have a lot of them that are really good on you on 7 that you can go for. Here, if you don't have escalating exposure yet, definitely look to pick that up first, as it's super good with your balls. Also, I think Boundless Spirit's probably one of the better ones here. It just gives you even more move speed, which is really good in the late game, and a lot of damage, which is super good. And personally, I really like Echo Shard for the double stun. I think it's just super valuable in the late game, especially if they don't have many debuff removers or unstoppables. And then the rest here are basically all good options. Just go based on what you personally enjoy or what the situation demands. Something like Spiritual Overflow is really good if you don't have any extra slots and don't want to sell anything. You can just sell Hollow Point Ward and fill that orange weapon slot instead. Now, late game is where you are the strongest. You're pretty much a monster in the late game because you're absurdly fast with all the spirit that's boosted your move speed, plus the move speed items that you go means you can zoom around the map faster than basically anything else in the game. And of course, you just have a lot of damage at this point. So again, your job in the late game is a lot about map control. You want to be the one catching waves, pushing waves when it's safe to do so. Make sure map control is good for your team. And also, you're very good at setting up pick-off potentials because you can surprise people coming at them at just Mach 10 and throwing down a stun on them. If you have teammates that follow up, it's an extremely easy way to pick people off. Also, an important thing to say, just because you're sort of in charge of map control at this point in the game, does not mean you want to do that over fighting with your team. Your main goal is to team fight with your team. You are a scaling carry. You definitely want to be in team fights, but it's super nice because basically wherever a fight breaks out, you can get there in like 5-10 seconds at the most because you just move so fast. In terms of late game team fights, you're pretty squishy with this build, so you want to play them fairly slowly and safely. Organized sort of fights with the front line, back line are your favorite because you can just throw tons of balls everywhere and shred absolutely everyone. Lockdown areas, it's really annoying to deal with these massive balls that do tons of damage everywhere. So that's what you're sort of looking to do, is just spam out all of your balls and throw tons of stuns on everybody. Really, compared to other scaling carries like sort of Haze or Wraith, you're a lot weaker in sort of like the one-on-one fight, so you want to abuse your move speed to the maximum and your crowd control to the maximum to create favorable opportunities for you to fight. You want to fight around your team, use speed to reposition well, and look for key moments to actually sort of commit to shooting things. Okay, and that is how you play Big Ball 7. Probably the build of the patch, in my opinion, at least so far. It will likely be nerfed. The balls are a little bit big. They're basically impossible to avoid at this point, so I guess it's going to get nerfed soon. So you might want to abuse it while you can. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.